Though it had humble beginnings, Disney is now a multi-billion-dollar titan of its own industry, towering over its competition, merging with companies like Marvel and Star Wars, swallowing everything in its path. All because of Disney's storytelling prowess. Now, not every story stands to amass billions of dollars in revenue. What sets Disney apart from the rest of us?
We are worms! Worthless worms!
Well, no, not quite. While Disney certainly makes good use of modern technology, it has dominated our present times because it has learned to borrow storytelling techniques from those whose stories have already stood the test of time. And there's perhaps no storytelling device more potent than irony. Irony creates tension and suspense, and thus can be used as the knife's edge on which the climax of a story pivots. It can be used to endear us to certain characters, and to make us laugh at others. To understand irony, then, is to bottle some of that Disney magic, to make the literary conventions that they put to use quantifiable and known. Because there are three distinct flavors of irony, verbal irony, dramatic irony, and situational irony, our objective will be first, that we are able to define the ironies, and second, that we are able to differentiate between the three. Seeing as the word irony is rooted in Greek playwriting, there's perhaps no better place to start than with Disney's Hercules. Iron in Greek comedy was a character whose sharp-eyed modesty was contrasted with another character's blind arrogance. Each time Iron feigned ignorance with a self-deprecating quip, the character would, ironically, reveal his own self-awareness. Most simply, irony is a contradiction, a moment when a character speaks one thing and communicates another, when an audience expects one thing and receives another, or when an audience knows something that a character doesn't. So, when Zeus asks Hades,
"How are things in the underworld?"
and Hades answers ironically, he emulates Iron with his response.
Well, they're just fine. You know, a little dark, a little gloomy, and as always, hey, full of dead people. What are you going to do?
This is an instance of verbal irony. As the ruler of the underworld, Hades is responsible for making the place dark, gloomy, and full of dead people. So to pretend that things are out of his control by saying,
Well, what are you going to do?
Hades is saying one thing, but meaning the opposite. Verbal irony isn't always comedic, though. Later in the movie, Meg confesses that she's in love with Hercules by repeatedly stating, despite her reluctance,
No chance, no way, I won't say it, no.
Meg's contradictory statements make her admission all the more romantic. The line,
This scene won't play, I won't say I'm in love.
is inherently ironic because Meg is in the middle of a scene where she is saying that she's in love, while figures like Hercules, Megara, and Hades take center stage and thus are animated with the full strength of Disney's animation studio. It's the Greek character Iron who breathes life into key scenes and helps to animate the story that Disney is trying to tell. If verbal irony is based on the words that a character can control, then dramatic irony is based on the words that a writer controls. Switching our focus from Hercules to The Lion King, Disney ejects Greek comedy from the VCR player and pops Shakespearean tragedy in. In Hamlet, Shakespeare makes regular and effective use of dramatic irony. Most notably, in Act 1, Scene 5, the audience learns that King Hamlet was murdered by his brother. But this is privileged knowledge, as not every character in the play learns this information. Here, Shakespeare uses dramatic irony to drive the tension of the plot. As with Claudius, so with Scar. Audiences watch the shifty lion murder his brother Mufasa by pushing him off a ledge. Dramatic irony comes about because Simba is scaling the side of the mountain as the betrayal happens and therefore is absent when the audience learns of Mufasa's death. Here, irony enhances the drama of the scene, this secret information making Scar's manipulations more menacing, making Mufasa's death more distressing, and making Simba's exile more emotional. To rub salt in the wound, Scar pours poison in Mufasa's ear just as Claudius did his brother, to exclaim,
Long live the king.
While murdering one's brother is as vile as it is beautifully poetic, The verbal irony that Scar weaponizes only serves to enhance the dramatic irony that's playing out in the scene at large. Just as Hercules roots itself in Greek playwriting, remember, irony comes from the comedic character Iron. The Lion King draws inspiration from Shakespearean playwriting. That's not to say that The Lion King is uninspired. The animated musical is more than a lifeless pelt draped atop Shakespeare's body of work. It's more to say that the movie employs dramatic irony in much the same way that the Bard once did. Like gunpowder to a firework, and like a genie to a magic lamp, situational irony condenses powerfully explosive ideas into a character's specific context. To mistake situational irony as a product of coincidence is to misread the subtle intention that lies beneath. If we assume the perspective of a character, ignoring the broader purpose of their story, it would be easy to think an ironic moment a product of bad luck. But, as if they were pawns on a game board, we understand that characters' fates are the result of meticulous forethought and contrived staging. In Mulan, female lead Fa Mulan poses as a male soldier so as to prevent her aging father from going to war. So, when General Shang mocks Mulan by asking,
Did they send me daughters? And I asked for sons.
we understand that this question reflects back on Mulan's hyper-specific situation. In Aladdin, the contradictory roles that power and limitation play throughout the movie's runtime are woven together by the common thread of situational irony. Whether the genie's situation elicits sympathy or laughter, hear the irony in his circumstance.
All part and parcel the whole genie gig.
Phenomenal cosmic powers!
So, when Aladdin finds himself helpless and trapped in the Cave of Wonders, it is situationally ironic that this is precisely when Aladdin finds the limitless potential of the genie, and when Jafar progresses from sultan to sorcerer to godlike deity.
The universe is mine to command, to control!
It is situationally ironic that this increase in power is the very thing that would limit Jafar's freedom.
You want to be a genie? You got it. And everything that goes with it. Phenomenal cosmic powers. Come on, you're the genie. I love freedom. Itty bitty living space.
Just as Aladdin was destined to discover the hidden power of the magic lamp, situational irony is reserved for specific characters in specific settings. And, like a genie, this irony lies in wait, one day to be escorted to the greater world through the vehicle of circumstance. Whether irony chooses to hide itself in a contradictory statement, think verbal irony, in conflicting perspectives, think dramatic irony, or in discordant events, think situational irony, the literary device has a far-reaching impact. Irony is nothing if not coy, hidden in plain sight. Even the most keen observers are liable to be taken by ironic surprise. It's as if historically great writers are engaged in a cat-and-mouse game, wherein their surprise is the mouse and our awareness is always on the prowl. The better dressed the disguise is, the more striking its impact. In this way, writers employ irony like the Greek employed the Trojan horse. And, like Pandora's box, irony poses complex implications for whoever stumbles across it. While not as marketable or as tangible as merchandise, it's the clever use of literary devices like irony that makes Disney stories and Disney characters so iconic. And just as Disney's animators fill the screen with color and artistic direction, Disney writers fill the script with a language equally as vivid. So the next time you're watching a Disney movie, or, in a broader sense, the next time you resonate with a well-written story, be on the lookout for irony and the surprising and poetic and contradictory truths that it brings to said story.